take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? Those of you here for the first time, welcome. What brings you here? Welcome back. Now I know why you're here. What brings you here? Her. That's just her. What did she tell you to get you here? Lots of promises, food, and everything?
That it's a moment of silence.
Nice. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. What else? First time. What brings you here?
Trying to learn more
About
the whole meditation and just everything about Buddhism.
Nice. You know much?
A little bit.
That's probably more than I know. And I'm leading the class, so we're in trouble. What else? First time? Yeah.
I'm on my spiritual growth, and I think this is my new beginning.
Nice. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Do y'all remember last Tuesday when it was the woman here with the Uber driver?
Yeah.
Right? So I have actually a funny follow-up to that story, which is hysterical. For those who weren't here last week, which is completely irrelevant to everything, but also really funny, I was asking, who was here and, what brought you here? And this one girl raised her hand and said her Uber driver. And it's like she just landed from Vienna, right? Austria. She was in Vienna, Austria, landed here, took an Uber earlier in the afternoon, who told her that his friend owned this place and she should show up here. So she came here 7 o'clock at night for a class. It was just a really funny introduction. And then after that, I said, well, who else is here for the first time? And nobody then wanted to raise their hand because they felt like that was just they couldn't compete with that. But what had happened was we determined I knew who it was, the person that was the Uber driver. His name is Luis. So I was going to message him that night, completely forgot about it. He sent me a message earlier today, and he said, hey, I'm happy my Uber people are enjoying the Dharma Bum Temple. And I texted him back, and we kind of joked about that. And he said, yeah, my sister was there, and she was going to raise her hand and say, that's my brother. But she's really shy and didn't want to add to it. So it was just a really funny thing. But yeah, I'm always interested how and why people end up here. I mean, even to this day, 18 years in, I'm still just blown away at how people end up here, why they end up here. And so when I ask the question why are you here? Why did you show up? For those who are maybe here for the first time or for those who keep coming back, that question, I take that, personally, I think it's fascinating, but I also think it's a very important question to ask ourselves. Whether it is your first time or whether you've been coming back for years or somewhere in between, to always kind of remind yourself, because, many things in life we take for granted and we kind of just go through routine, we get in routines, maybe you're here every Tuesday, maybe you come every Wednesday, maybe you're here every Saturday, whatever it is, you have these routines. But there's a reason behind that routine, because there's a million things that we could be doing at any moment. We could be literally doing anything in the world right now. And yet, for some reason, you chose to come here. And so I think it's really important to always remind yourself every time you show up, whether it's here or any sort of spiritual journey, spiritual place, spiritual practice, always remind yourself why you're there. Because something that sparked that interest initially, and I don't just mean tonight, but something that sparked that interest in you to explore some sort of spiritual path, there's a lesson there for us. And very often we'll forget the reason why. And so when things get difficult, when things get challenging, when we face conflict in our lives, have personally found it really important to my practice to come back to, why did I originally start this? Why did I start my practice? And what that does is it often motivates me to just keep going. You just keep practicing. So even if you don't share why you're here, you've heard me ask that question for years, if nothing else, when I do ask that question, just kind of ponder for a minute in your own mind, your own heart, why. Why you keep showing up. Because I think it's important. So, all right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. To those who are joining virtually, welcome, glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. A couple things to tell you before we begin. If you're sitting for the first time or here for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide in the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, same thing. Just try to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, especially if you're new, you're not going to empty your mind. You're not going to stop the racing thoughts. We're just going to sit and breathe. And don't expect anything. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention and focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we all know, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. That's what we get. And this practice is learning to be with life as it arises. And not doing what many of us have done so much of our lives, which is run. Learning to sit with life as it is. The first thing the Buddha said is life is filled with suffering, dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. And so the very first part of this practice is learning to sit with that. But we don't like that. And it's, I think, a very important piece of this practice and teaching that often gets overlooked. Because most people come into meditation and Buddhist practice because they're suffering, struggling, sad, anxious, lonely, depressed, whatever it might be, whatever led you on this journey. It wasn't most likely because you were peaceful and happy and everything was going well in your life. But something led you to this path and this practice. And so the first noble truth of life includes suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, things just not going our way. Sometimes we have to learn to sit with that for a little while before we instantly look for the fix. Because the second noble truth, as many of you know, is the cause. The third is the end of suffering, and the fourth is the path. But too often people want to jump to 2, 3, and 4 without actually sitting with the suffering for a little bit. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. And that never changes. Often people who are new to Buddhism think that there's so much to learn and to understand and to know. But ultimately this practice is just a mirror. It's not about learning about some other religion or philosophy or culture or something that happened 2,500 years ago. It is bringing your life into every single moment and using these teachings as nothing more than a mirror to reflect back on your levels of greed, your levels of anger, your levels of ignorance. This is the cause of our suffering. And how we transform that with the practice of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. So each moment, that's the practice. Each day, that's the practice. It doesn't change. And we could spend years just there. You know, that's hard enough. But learning to be mindful of our intentions and what's behind each thought, each word, and each action. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, focus on what other people say and do. And this practice is setting that down and focusing on what we say, what we do. Doesn't mean we ignore what's going on in the world. It doesn't mean we ignore what other people are thinking or saying or doing. We pay attention to it. We engage with it. It's the world we're in. You don't shut your eyes to it. But the focus is not on anything initially other than yourself. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Ross, thank you for, there's a comment here. Hey, Jeff, it's Ross. I have a cold and don't want you to kick me out, so I stayed home. Thank you very much. That guy never came back either. I felt bad. So we'll open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with.
Did you kick somebody out when you had a cold?
Yeah, I did. The question was, did I kick somebody out who had a cold? Yeah. They were sitting right here, and there was a couple behind, actually it was on the second cushion. There was a couple behind him, older couple. They have some health issues. He wears a mask constantly, just for safety. And it was a Saturday. It was, probably 70 people in here. And this individual was like dying in the front row. And I sat down about to start the class, and I just could feel like I just felt it. I said, "Are you sick?" And they coughed and said, "No, not really. I think I'm over it." I said, "No, I think you're sick." I used it to talk about honesty. And I said, I love that you're here, but it's really best you go if you're sick. And they said, "Do you want me to leave?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." Yeah. I said, "It's nothing personal, but none of us need to get sick." And, I said, "Please come back," but I haven't seen him since. I hope he's better. Yeah. So questions?
You just gave a great example of confronting something that's uncomfortable and that dukkha. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't, not to sound all high and mighty, but it wasn't uncomfortable for me. It was just reality, the truth. Person is sick.
That's why I'm here, because it would be uncomfortable for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's explore that. Why? Why would it be uncomfortable for you?
I avoid confrontation, and I think that would lead to suffering, but I acknowledge that it is keeping me suffering. So I appreciate the things you've said, and it helps me.
Yeah. Thank you. When you said the part where you just said that you would think the avoidance, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. I think you said that you avoid it because you think it would lead to suffering, meaning engaging in conflict would lead to suffering. Is that what you meant?
Yes, and I acknowledge by not confronting it, by avoiding it, I'm suffering. So.
Absolutely. That's hard. Anyone else have a hard time with engaging in I didn't even finish the question. Engaging in conflict, right? Conflict, it's everywhere. It's you can't, and that's the thing, is you can't avoid it, obviously, right?
Can you?
What's that?
But can you?
You can't avoid it in essence because it's going on. It's happening. In our minds, we might be avoiding it. Like if either one of you was leading this class and you're just sitting here and this guy's sick and everybody is knowing this person is sick and everyone's like looking at the person who's coughing, but you're sitting there afraid, that's not really avoiding it. Then you're actually just owning it. You're like, oh, I'm just going to suffer. But sometimes, that harsh, again, I always go back to Manjushri. For those who never heard me talk about Manjushri, but the second, they're called tankas, the Tibetan art pieces on the wall there. He's the one holding a sword. And Manjushri represents the endless body of wisdom. So Buddhism, there are two wings to Buddhist teaching, wisdom and compassion. And the large statue behind me in the middle is Kuan Yin. Her name means hearer of the world's cry, so she hears all the suffering in the world and then pours out compassion to heal. She's the embodiment, endless body of compassion. Manjushri is the endless body of wisdom. This is also Manjushri, the kind of display here, more of a Taiwanese, Chinese style. Manjushri is on a lion. But anyone here been in a cage with a crazy lion ever? Right? So what would that be like? It wouldn't be fun. It would be dangerous. It would be scary. But the idea is that with wisdom, you tame the crazy lion. And in this example, the crazy lion is just our own heads. So with wisdom, the lion becomes just a simple little cat that you can hang out and play with. So this is Manjushri with the happy lion who's become a cat. That is the Tibetan version of Manjushri. Same dude, same teaching, same idea. But the sword is considered the sword of wisdom. And the sword of wisdom, we use the wisdom to overcome ignorance. Ignorance not meaning dumb, it just means you're ignoring reality. You're ignoring the truth. And in this example, the truth is an individual was sick. Clearly. The truth is there are people, they were sitting right where you are. And the guy right in front of you. So the truth is sick, don't want to get sick, don't want to get sick, nobody wants to get sick. That is the truth. And sometimes you need that sort of wisdom to cut through the ignorance. Ignorance is ignoring. To ignore that would have meant I was ignoring the fact that this person is sick, they don't want to get sick, and nobody wants to get sick. So the wisdom says, cut through that. And wisdom is harsh very often because it can hurt. And also the danger is how do you discern what is ultimate wisdom? Because, unenlightened fools have a really hard time figuring out what ultimate wisdom is. Yeah.
I was just in yoga before I came here, and I have a situation right now where I let a couple of friends borrow some things of mine, and I don't need them. Like it's, I gave it in freedom, love and freedom. Please, use it for as long as you want. As long as you want. But some of the things I would eventually like back, and I did tell them at the time, these could be with you for a while, go ahead and use them, beautify your space, but eventually I want to ask for them back. But now I'm in a position where I like to ask for them back, but I feel bad about it. And I'm able to trace it in my head. It's just that I don't actually need them. It's just I have this scarcity mindset about things. And it's I just want possession of them. Whether I'm going to actually use them or not myself is up for debate. I might use them, I might not. But it's just I feel like I want them back just so I can own them again.
How long ago was it? I don't know. I missed that or
one friend borrowed some things of mine 5 months ago.
Okay.
The other one just a month ago. Two different friends who bought things of mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of something I'm sitting with. I know it's a scarcity mindset thing that I have, and it's a wanting possession of it, possessiveness thing. But they are my things. So I just feel bad. It's a people pleasing thing as well.
Right. So there's no question there. It's just an expression of what you're sitting with, and I think in situations like that, it helps, which it sounds like you're kind of doing, but to ask yourself, again, coming back to intention, and you've said, in essence, everything I'm going to say, but the question is why? Why would one want things back? And it isn't about ownership of things, right? I think of, I love how movies really carry a lot of Buddhist teachings in them. and the different lives. You ever seen it? It's kind of a twisted movie, but I think it's called The Red Violin. Anyone ever seen that?
Yes.
Red Violin, right? The life of the violin.
Yep.
And how this violin, for centuries, it tells the stories of all the different people that had this violin. Again, it's not a pretty pleasant, I think, wasn't the violin like possessed or something? I don't know. It gets a little crazy. So if you put something, it's going to be some sweet, gentle movie. It's not really necessarily that. But the idea is that the violin has a life of its own. And different people had it at different points in time without being attached to it. This building, ironically, today is 8 years since we had our first meditation here. This building, which, as you've heard me say, New Year's, whatnot, built in 1927, thousands and thousands of people have come through here. And when we took it over, to clarify earlier, for those who have never been here before, I don't own this place. She was totally wrong when the Uber driver said I own the place. I don't own it. It owns me, if anything. But the idea is that we're all just kind of passing through the space. And so, I don't even think of this building as the Dharma Bum. It's like, sure, our name is on it now, but 100 years from now, who knows? If we're here, someone else is here. We're all just using things as we go through. And so the question from a non-attachment standpoint is to explore, where's your attachment to it? I get it. If you need these things, if you want these things, if they're important to you, then get them. But I didn't hear any of that in what you said. I didn't hear you need it. I didn't hear you want it. I didn't hear that it was important to you. Again, you didn't ask a question. I'm just kind of retelling what I want it back. Why does it bother you?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
It's annoying.
Yeah, I hear you.
I was in yoga and this is in my mind. Like, just go away. Stop it.
Yeah. Maybe it's time to just surrender and just move on. Yeah. Wouldn't that be, so here's another way, right? The Zen expression, when hungry, eat, when tired, sleep. So either ask for it back and be done with it, or don't ask for it back and be done with it. But you're stuck in the middle.
It's like,
So choose one of the two options.
yeah.
Ask for it back and be done. Don't ask for it back and be done. Same thing. Yeah. Keep us posted next week. Yeah.
So, how do we engage with the practice of an awareness of how things are when we have a relationship with someone who's constantly invalidating our subjective truth and reality or experience? Because I know that my experience is subjective. My truth is subjective, so is theirs. But if it's never acknowledged or validated in any way, I feel gaslit, but I don't feel like it's helpful to use that language. And so I'm trying to figure out how to still stay grounded and to still stay engaged, at least with what feels true and right for me, even when I'm not getting any positive reinforcement.
Sure. Yeah, no, super tough. And so a couple of things that you've heard me talk about a lot, but what comes to mind really is the practice of non-attachment, and I'll kind of expand on this in a minute. The practice of non-attachment, and also what Venerable Eger, my first teacher, always said to me, Jeff, this practice is about learning to not expect anything from anyone ever. So start with that. And I also want to back up and say that without knowing details, it's always going to depend upon the dynamics of the relationship, who it's with, if it's, colleagues, coworkers, friends, whatnot. Sometimes it's easy to just remove yourself from situations. Sometimes it's family members, loved ones. It's not always so easy to just kind of remove yourself. So it really depends on who and how it is, always. But with that being said, never am I suggesting on a very, we were talking about this the other day with in Buddhist teachings called conventional reality and ultimate reality. Conventional reality is we're just human. We have these feelings, we have these emotions. right? We're not enlightened. We're just unenlightened, ignorant fools half the time doing our best to try to get through a day without pissing people off, right? And so conventional reality is, yes, you have feelings, you have emotions, you want to feel appreciated and have your feelings validated and feel that, you matter and your words matter. On a conventional level, yes, this is how we function. On an ultimate level, ultimate reality, beyond all of that, why does it matter? Again, very similar question to ask yourself. And it's always dangerous saying this because if you're in unhealthy, toxic relationships, I'm not suggesting that you just, if you're being physically, mentally, emotionally abused, toxic relationship, whatever it might be, I'm not suggesting that Buddhist practices, and this is for those who are new, I'm not suggesting that Buddhist practice means you just stay there and say, well, I'm practicing Buddhism, you can abuse me. No, remove yourself from these situations. Incredibly unhealthy and dangerous. But again, you can't always pull yourself away from situations. But the question is, if it's not that, to ask yourself, why do I crave and desire this validation?
So it kind of goes back to the original question, which is then how do I continue to work toward seeing things as they are if I'm constantly being told that I don't see things as they are?
Right. So my question again is why, again, not to answer right now,
Yeah.
right? Not from like a therapy standpoint to process, but to really ponder, you're trying to see things as much as you can towards ultimate reality without all your ego and attachment and everything that you're putting onto it. And someone else is challenging you on that, right? So why not apply the same thing you're trying to do towards them? And the reason you can't is because you're expecting them to not be that way.
I'm expecting them to be loving.
I was just going to say, you're expecting them to support you, and they're not. They're not. We suffer because we crave and desire things to be different from how they are. I'm not saying that this individual's lack of support and lack of love and lack of validation towards you is okay or healthy. But the reality is, that's what they're doing. You want to see ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is this person is not treating you with love. Again, I want to be very careful here. Maybe they're watching and I don't need somebody hunting me down. But what I'm hearing you say is somebody is viewing you without this love and respect and appreciation for who you are. And ultimate reality is that has nothing to do with you. That's their shit. So you want to see ultimate reality, but you're not doing that with this individual. You're wrapped up in your expectations and judgments of them, which again is not wrong. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Total sense.
And then you're free from that. Let them judge you. Who cares? And if you want to stay in a relationship where you don't feel validated, then Godspeed. You'll join the rest of the millions of people in the world. They're stuck in relationships where they don't feel appreciated or validated or loving. Welcome to America. Yeah.
I just have a story.
Yeah.
No question.
Go ahead, please.
The first time I came to Dharma Bum,
Like
this
80
was
years ago.
Yeah, the first year that you guys were here. I remember I went and I thanked you after Robina. It was her night.
Nice.
Yeah. So I remember I was like, I'm here because my boyfriend cheated on me and this. And I remember to a T, and I told Peter before we got here, I was just like, yeah, I remember what Jeff said was like, that's them, not you. They did that. And it was like this glass shattered, and I was like, you're absolutely right. And then it just is something that I go back and I think about, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's not me. So I had to ask myself after that a lot of questions, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad it happened, because I was just I wouldn't be planting a voting tree a year later.
Right. Yeah, I often, when people bring things up like that, it depends on the situation, if I know them or not, because I don't want to be so harsh right when I meet them. As you wait a while. But often when people say like, yeah, that type of thing happened, often I'll say like, congratulations, like you're free, you know the truth, you know the reality. You know, you're not lost in delusion. So, and as painful as that is, you know, it's super painful.
Yeah, you have to sit with it.
You have to sit with it, and it doesn't make it good, it doesn't make it fun, it doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wonderful, but it's the reality. And reality, you know, again, coming back to the Buddhist thing, the Buddhist first thing is life is filled with suffering. That's what we get. You know, we cannot escape it as long as we're alive. So how do we deal with it? How do we view it? How do we approach it? There's a question here. Let me read this for a second. Oh yeah. That's funny because I used to talk about this a lot, and I hadn't mentioned it in a while until just somewhat recently as well. But there's a question. Hi Jeff. Today a couple of friends and I were talking about distractions during meditation, and they mentioned how the Buddha meditated on decomposing bodies. Can you explain the why of that? Yeah. So. One, good to see you, Janelle. Well, I don't see you, you see me, but thanks for being here. So often people really don't realize that one of the places the Buddha would take the disciples to meditate on was to the Toronto grounds to see decomposing bodies. And, you know, this is India 2,500 years ago. It wasn't like today where you go to grave sites and, you know, things are beautiful and there's flowers and all that kind of stuff. These were just bodies tossed aside. And they would go there to meditate on these decomposing bodies. Not, to my understanding, to your question, so much about a distraction standpoint. Like when I first learned that teaching, I didn't learn it as a mechanism or a tool to learn focus and concentration versus, say, distraction. But the way I was taught was it was a practice and teaching on impermanence. And that's what the Buddha really wanted the disciples to see, was that this is you. This is going to be you. We are all impermanent. As the Buddha taught, we all have the nature to age, to get sick, and to die. We cannot escape that. And so if we know we're going to age, if we know we're going to get sick, and if we know we're going to die, which is going to happen to every single one of us in this room, it will happen, then why waste any moment miserable and angry and sad and depressed for other people doing stupid shit? And for me, that teaching, I think that's why I used to talk about it so much, is it just, when I was really first trying to drive this stuff into my head, and as someone who grew up so angry and so depressed and so destructive, it was this constant, like, I didn't want to live in that place of anger anymore. And so the teaching of impermanence, meaning the self being impermanent, was something that I just drilled into my head. It's like, begin to enjoy your life, begin to enjoy your life, begin to enjoy your life. Because one day you will be that decomposing body. So I think it's such a profound teaching. I also think on another kind of aspect, maybe more towards the distraction thing, you know, we're often in kind of modern day, Western, especially meditation, Buddhist stuff, is we tend to think that meditation like has to be this big event, or it has to have like, you know, bells and whistles and yoga mats and, you know, incense and like, you know, certain things. Like we get wrapped up in this kind of culture around meditation, especially in the US. But you don't need anything to meditate. You just need your breath. And when you don't have your breath, you don't need to meditate anymore. So I see it also as just a simplification of, you can really practice anywhere, thinking that you need to go to the beach or the ocean or sit on the mat or, you know, even come here. Y'all could have just stayed home right now, you know, like Ross, could have stayed home. I'm glad you're here because, you know, it gave me something to do. But you really can do this practice anywhere. It's super important to understand that. So I hope that helps, Janelle. Yes, that was the message. Great. You're welcome. What else? A couple more before we close. Yeah?
So, I mean, applied for this job and I really want to get hired. But I'm still waiting, and I responded, oh, we're gonna tell you until Friday. So it's still not Friday, so I'm trying, in my meditation practice, I try to detach myself from expectations, but at the same time, I have like this, positive thinking, like, oh, why not? I do my best, I'm gonna get it, I can see myself, visualize myself getting hired, it's fine. But then I feel detachment, and then I will try to let go again. And then again, I feel attached again, and then let go. So, that's my current struggle. My question would be, how can I have a more healthy relationship with ambition?
Yeah, so I appreciate all that, and especially adding the last part, because that's really, I think, the heart of your question, which is the healthy relationship to ambition. Because, after this job, it'll be the next thing, and the next thing, and the next. It's not just this job. Like right now, the question is based on this example, which is, by Friday you say you'll know?
Yeah.
Can you come Saturday so we get to know if you got the job? All right. Saturday, 11 o'clock, I want to report. But it's not just, and I'm sure we all can relate to this, it's not just this job. It's everything in your life that we want to control. And also, just as a point of reference, I think it's important to understand, and sometimes it's just semantics, but in Buddhism, you said detached. The practice and the teaching is non-attachment. Detached is almost, even the way you said it, like cutting off from it. So non-attachment isn't about cutting off. It's not about severing, right? It's non-attachment means you're not attached to the result or the outcome. It doesn't mean you don't care. Non-attachment is actually love. I talk about this a lot because people mistake, it's one of the most, I think, common misunderstood Buddhist teachings of non-attachment. People hear it and think, well, that means I don't care. No, you do care. And that's wonderful. You care about this job. I can see it in your face, the excitement, like you want this job. We all are going to pray and hope that you get this job, right? But it ain't Friday, man. It's Tuesday. And you can do everything in the world you want between now and Friday. Friday's not coming any sooner. Right? There's always the stories of like the wise master and the young disciple, and there's a great story of the master and the disciple, and they're in the rain, and the disciple's running. Starts running in the rain, and the master says, what are you doing? And the disciple says, it's raining, so I'm running. And the master says, the rain is everywhere. It's everywhere. Friday's going to come whether you try to control it or not. You've done your work. You did the interview. You were prepared for it or not. You put on your best clothes or not. You combed your hair nice or not. Whatever you've done, you've done. Did you wear the glasses during the interview?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, always wear glasses during an interview. For those who don't know that, wear glasses during an interview. I spent years hiring people, and people like to hire people who wear glasses. So I hope you get the job. But here's the thing, to your question about ambition. There's nothing wrong. Often people think Buddhism means that, because the Buddha was a monk and roamed around, as a homeless wandering beggar, that you shouldn't have ambition. All of us should have ambition. But have ambition that is filled with passion and love to make your world and the world we're in a kinder, gentler place. Look at the intention behind your ambition. Do you want to have a job and be successful because you just want to make a bunch of money and buy a bunch of crap you don't need? Or do you want to have a job and be successful so you can support yourself and family and friends and do good? There's nothing wrong with ambition. Do not think that Buddhism says you should not have ambition. Have ambition, but understand the intention behind it. In the Buddhist teaching, the Eightfold Path, you can Google this, but the Eightfold Path, one of them is right livelihood. The Eightfold Path is having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. So it talks about your livelihood and how important that is. Did you interview to work at a brothel? I'm being serious. It's actually in the Buddhist teachings about things that are not right livelihood 2,500 years ago. Right? And
I wore my glasses.
Not sure what that has to do with the question. Right? So there are certain things, right? To run a gambling house, the casino, to be a butcher, to work in a brothel. Those things are not right livelihood. If you're outside of that, I think you're clear. Yeah. We'll do one more, and we'll close. You're good.
All right. So the idea of not attaching yourself to somebody else's opinion of us, and knowing the difference between that and being open to hearing the way I'm being experienced by somebody else as valid and something that can teach me something.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I think that it's a beautiful recognition that there is a big difference in these two situations, and both occur and are important. Meaning it is very important to be open to listening to other people who know you or not, love you, care about you, and are genuinely sharing. I remember years ago, early on in this practice, one of my dear friends during this early days and journey, him and I were having an argument about something in our little Buddhist world. And I remember saying to him, like, that's just how I am. And we were close friends. And he said, well, maybe you should change how you are. And I thought, I'd never forgotten that. Like, it was one of the most beautiful, honest, authentic, genuine things anybody had ever said to me. I needed to hear that feedback. I didn't maybe like it at that moment. So that was his view, his opinion. He wasn't doing it to dump on me. He really cared. So I think in those situations, it's important to listen. And there's also going to be situations where people view you and judge you, and it's not really about you. They're not there necessarily to help you or, give you advice or their opinion, their opinion because they really care. They just are judging you. And there's a big difference there. That's what I heard in your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
To not attach to the people who are just judging you and critiquing you and hating on you just because that's who they are, right? When, this and kind of the earlier about, that's them. Like, yes, that was, when he said that to me, that was him. But it was also right.
Like, two things can be true.
Yeah, that was his view of me. That was his judgment, his critique, his feedback. Very critical. But there was nothing but truth to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. For the benefit of this practice, be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Gracie Hatch during her time of healing, and to her family who may be suffering at this time. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, so before you all head out, Dharma Bum host Eddie has a few announcements for us.
Hello everyone, my name is Ed. Those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction problems, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish